Sunday Superversive Livestream. I am your host, Benjamin Wheeler, and I'm here with my co host, as usual, as always, Anthony Marquetta. Anthony, how are you doing today?
Can't get rid of me as much as you try.
I know. I've accepted it. It fills the loneliness. You see, that's the benefit of ghosts. Having ghosts, you see, is that they help you deal with the loneliness. And similar to ghosts, what we're dealing with is a sort of ghost of the past, which is, of course, the specter of the Odyssey over the
Hmm.
minds and souls of men of the West. Much like how Journey to the West may be considered the story of of China and other similar civilizations. Uh, so too is the Odyssey for us. And just recently, just over Christmas break, uh, we have enjoyed the final addition to the epic saga, and that is the Ithaca arc, where Odysseus
The Ithaca Saga.
Ithaca saga, where Odysseus finally returns home and kills all the suitors, which to me is one of my favorite things, practically a formulative memory as I watched the TV show back in the day, and man, did they murder those suitors good. Mm, mm. How about you, Anthony? What do you think? This is your show, even though I'm introducing it. Uh, what do you think?
Uh, I thought it was real good for some reason. I mean, I guess there are cycles. But there are cycles, but the Odyssey for some reason is really big right now. Epic kind of started like the modern new wave, but there's also the Emily Wilson translation
Ugh,
that got a lot of artificial press.
ugh,
Uh, Entirely artificial. Literally
entirely
nobody was
artificial.
excited about it.
Yes.
They're in. This is very transparent. Literally nobody. Uh, like I'm trying to think of how to put it, but I'm blanking. I'm sorry. Yeah, literally nobody was excited for a new translation of the Odyssey. Nobody's ever excited for a new translation of anything. Like it's just a friggin' translation. Some are good, some are bad, but the general public is not going to get excited over it. But
Yeah.
it got a ton of press because she was a feminist and was doing a feminist interpretation. They decided to prop it up. Uh, that kind of started things. Jorge, however, was a part of this. Maybe he rode the wave. Maybe he was one of the people starting the wave. But he had he had his TikTok epic, and now the return came out, and now Nolan's Odyssey is going to kind of crest it. I think that's probably going to be the crest of this little Odyssey wave that we're on right now.
I mean, it's going to
Uh,
be its death knell for sure.
yeah, that's the more negative way of putting it.
I
Sure.
mean, no, no, no. Listen, this is about Epic the musical, but that cast list he's got is cancerous. Cancerous.
Here's my hot take. There are two bad casting choices, and it's Zendaya and Lupita Nyong'o. Everybody else is fine. Robert Pattinson would actually make an excellent Odysseus. He's a legitimate actor who got
Wouldn't
stung
Matt
by the
Damon
fact
be Odysseus?
I would think Robert Pattinson. Matt Damon could be. He could be
I thought.
anyone. That
What?
yeah.
Wait, what part of the? Is this not like just the ending of it?
No, this is a full Odyssey.
Oh yeah, no. Then it would probably be Robert Patterson.
And Pattinson, like, believe it or not, he people don't respect him enough because of Twilight, and then he was Batman. But he's actually a legitimate actor.
No, he is.
Like he's very good. He
Hmm.
would be an excellent Odysseus. I would be very happy with him as Odysseus. Tom Holland is honestly not a bad actor. I don't know what they would use him in specifically, but there are any number of things he
Telemachus.
would be fine. Telemachus, yeah, that would work. Although it would be weird with Robert Pattinson's probably only like a decade older, but
Hmm.
uh, makeup can do wonders. Yeah, he would be fine as Telemachus. I don't really have an issue with that. Matt Damon, you could use him as Eurylochus if you want to. You could use him as the King of Thracia. Uh, you know, anything. There's a billion different things, right? Use him as one of the gods. The bad casting choices are Lupita Nyong'o and Zendaya, and My other hot take is one of those two would not be a red flag because you could see them as Calypso. I understand that historically Calypso is not black, right? Like, because it's the Odyssey, it's in the Mediterranean. But she has been coded black in the popular consciousness for a very long time now. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't really have an issue with Calypso being black. My problem is that there are two, which means someone's getting very, very badly miscast. And I would bet money that Lupita Nyong'o is going to be Penelope.
Yeah.
That's my main thought. Uh, Anne Hathaway is probably going to be like that's the thing. My thing with Nolan's cast. So this is my only comment on it. Then we're going to move on because it's not what the stream is about. My thing with Nolan's cast is I actually don't think the cast is like as catastrophic as everybody says. I think it's the fact that in this ancient Greek you got two like African black, like very clearly black, right?
Mm.
People in it. That makes me go like, where are you sticking these characters? Like, and why? My favorite comment on it was somebody seriously needs to tell Nolan that Trump is president now. It's okay.
You
You don't need to do this. Nobody cares anymore.
don't need to abuse yourself like this, man. We're fine. We're fine. You don't have to. No. We all know that they've got them trapped in a bunker somewhere. There's a gun somewhere. They just have to. They just have to find it. Be
Mm-hmm.
free.
But okay, that's my one comment on Nolan's Odyssey. So I suppose if the cast list comes out and then it turns into like, oh, as it turns out, Lupita Nyong'o and Zendaya have two very minor roles. Then it might like okay, like maybe it'll be fine, but
Somehow.
I doubt it. It won't happen. Uh, Whatever. Back to Epic though. So Epic, yeah. Here's the thing about Jorge and Epic. We've discussed this before and like what it means. The thing that makes Epic different is that Jorge is just some guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there is nothing. He's not part of the system at all. He cast Epic through TikTok auditions, which like far from this being a negative, it's a huge positive. Like he's entirely outside of the system. Almost everybody in the musical, in fact, I would argue everyone is at least a relative unknown. Some of them had minor followings, but are basically unknown, right? He just cast it literally based on who he thought gave the best audition on TikTok, right? And he's not involved in the industry at all. He's just a theater major from Notre Dame who's like, hey, I want to make an Odyssey musical, right? Uh, this is pretty much the best case scenario for this sort of project in the modern
Yes.
day, right? Because the major studio systems would have never allowed something like Epic to get made, never. Um, and this isn't to say that I think Epic is right wing coded. Far from it. I don't think that. I'm not implying that. That isn't what I'm saying. What I am saying, though, is that very clearly, if you were to ask, like, it's pretty clear watching it, and if you were to just look at the way Jorge speaks about Epic, that this was a passion project for him, and that the reason that Epic exists is that he thought it would be really cool to make a musical version of the Odyssey, right? Like,
Yes.
that was his main motivation. There was nothing else. There was no, I wanted to reinterpret it. I wanted to view it from another lens. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to give my take on it. There was no studio saying, no, you don't have enough of this. You don't need enough of
You
that.
must put Zendaya into it.
Right,
No,
exactly.
please.
None of that is a part of this. It's just like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if if I can make a soundtrack for the Odyssey, and then he did it, right?
Mm.
Like, and that alone, like, th- let's get to the Ithaca saga then, because this is a good segue. Penelope, the portrayal of Penelope, I would argue, is simply like that. It's one of the biggest triumphs of Epic the musical because Penelope is perfect.
Yes.
She's like no notes. Uh, I love the way she's portrayed. I love her song. I love that she is characterized the way that I imagine Penelope in the poem. Right? Like you need to understand too that I like follow enough of the Discord. This is very rare. People because Penelope is arguably literally the single most iconic and beloved female character in all of literature, uh, they desperately want to reinterpret her from what she was, right? Like, so if you go to like, you ask someone, what are the qualities of Penelope in the Odyssey? Not Epic in the Odyssey, and then you go, well, she's clever, she's faithful, she's desperate, right? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
she loves Odysseus, but she despairs about the fact that he might be home, right?
Right.
And yet she hasn't entirely given up either, though she's on the verge of it at this point, right?
Right.
That's Penelope. Epic the Musical has captured the essential elements of who Penelope is as a character. And that is almost never done nowadays. People don't like, because, like, the modern world, I should say, modern feminists specifically, modern society, doesn't like Penelope.
No, not
Because,
at all.
right. Why? Well, one thing I read, it's like sometimes you read things by, like, feminists and you think it's like aliens writing it who are studying humanity but don't get it. Go, why would Penelope remain faithful for 20 years? Which is almost a question that is so dumb that you are at a loss for words as to how to explain it. Like, it's like the question C.S. Lewis describes certain questions like that. Like he said, there was a piece of criticism where somebody said they described Jesus in the Gospels as just not appearing like a real person. And Lewis said, occasionally you will get a piece of criticism that is so wrong that you almost don't know how to respond because it's like the opposite of true. And then he's like, this is one of those times. Like, and he goes, Jesus is literally one of the most vivid figures in all of world literature. You know,
Mm.
like in the Gospels, he goes, to say that is just like, how could you say that with a straight face? It's the same with Penelope, where you go, but why would she remain faithful? It's like, what do you mean, why? Like, how do
Well,
you answer that question?
it's like one of those things where it's like, how do you answer something without sounding mad? It's like, what do you mean?
It's like, because she loved Odysseus, and go, well, yes, but did she? And go, yeah, no,
Yes.
no, she did. That's she definitely did. Um, so that's one of the things about Epic that, for whatever, like, I'm sure Jorge is woke. I have no doubt of this,
No
right?
doubt.
Like, I haven't checked it, but and I don't think he's an SJW. That's not what I'm
No.
accusing him of.
Like, He's
But the
a
fact
he's
that he,
a theater kid normie. Whatever his
yeah,
politics are,
exactly.
theater kid normie.
Right? Like I don't think he's an SJW. I'm not accusing him of that. I have nothing bad to say about him actually. As far as I could tell, he's a very nice guy. He seems very appreciative of his fans, and that is something as a creator myself that I always respect. Uh, so I appreciate that about him. But like, I have no doubt if you were to ask him his opinions on any number of left-wing issues, he would firmly be on the left-wing side of it.
Mm-hmm.
However, I am also sure that in Epic the Musical, that was simply not the focus. Right? Like,
Mm.
that was never the goal of it. His goal was to make an adaptation of the Odyssey, and that is what he did. Uh, Even some of the choices where you go like, oh, this could be kind of woke, really doesn't read that way in Epic. Like, for example, Aeolus is played by a woman. Well, let's be honest here. How important of a character is Aeolus? Is anybody really upset that he has gender swapped Aeolus? No, right? Like, who cares? Uh, or like, oh, they have a black woman play Calypso. Well, again, Calypso's kind of been coded black in the popular consciousness for a long time. The Pirates movies did it, and they certainly weren't being woke when they did it. We have Calypso music. We think of the Caribbean. He used the Caribbean kind of style for the songs. Nobody really cares that Calypso is black, right?
Right.
Uh, Even Eurylochus, like the style of singing Eurylochus has, is the fact that he's black like just doesn't really matter, right? So I appreciate this about Epic the Musical. And in the Ithaca saga, one thing that he does is he nails Penelope, because all of those qualities of Penelope, her desperation, her love for Odysseus, her cleverness, uh the fact that she is on the verge but hasn't quite given up yet, all of this are on display in the Ithaca saga, and I think he nails it.
Mm.
So that I love. right? That's one thing that I will really always appreciate him for. The challenge, which is the first song of the Ithaca saga, it's Penelope's song, has been available as a song in for a while because the demo came out. He like released a demo months and months ago. You know, uh, so I've known about the song for a while. It was always one of my favorite songs, even from the demo version. Uh, yeah, I think I think that the singer kills it. Now, going into the events of the Ithaca saga, so Epic is not the Odyssey, right? Epic is its own thing. It's an adaptation of the Odyssey. It's based on the Odyssey, but it's not the Odyssey. So the Ithaca saga is an extremely condensed version of Odysseus's return, which, for those of you who remember your Odyssey, actually makes up the majority of the book, right?
Mm.
Like, the majority of the Odyssey takes place on Ithaca. This is why in the movie The Return, when I heard the premise, I was not put off by it because I'm like, yeah, you could easily make an hour and a half movie on that, right? Like, no question. Uh, the fact that the movie was horribly boring is a flaw of the movie. It's not a flaw of the premise, you know,
Mm.
uh, because there's definitely enough content there. So he has to take all of this content and condense it into 20 minutes. So that's the other thing. How does he do, and wrap up, by the way, Odysseus's character arc in this time frame? So how does he do with that? I would say actually really well, right? Like I think that I don't really feel like I missed anything, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I kind of did at first when I heard it. I was like, maybe Odysseus, which is the second song or the third song, which is about Odysseus killing all the suitors, by the way. Maybe this should be, I thought maybe it should be two songs, but after re listening to it a couple times, I'm like, you know what? I'm not really sure what I would include, like, that wasn't in here, right? We
Mm.
don't get any of, we don't get to meet the maid, who's a major character in the Odyssey. We don't get to meet the swineherd, who's a major character in the Odyssey. We don't get to meet Laertes. Uh, in fact, I think in the epic canon, even though it's not been made explicit in any of the officially released songs, in the epic canon, uh, he has he's dead already, which doesn't really matter much,
Mm.
to be honest with you. But instead, the way that Jorge does it, which I think is smart and is the right way to go, is that the Ithaca saga starts off with Penelope issuing the challenge. That's the famous challenge, right? Whoever can string my husband's bow and shoot through 12 axe heads gets to be the new king and can marry me, right? Very famous moment
Right.
the in the story. Okay. So it starts off with Penelope issuing the challenge, and cleverly, in my opinion, Jorge has her spurred on to do the challenge because a storm has broken out off the coast of Ithaca, which is an unusual storm, and she thinks it might be a sign. Now, we know that the storm is actually Odysseus's fight with Poseidon, right? Uh, so that's a cool little detail. So this is what spurs her to go, all right, I'm going to do the challenge now. I'm going to accept that the storm was maybe some sort of sign, and I'm going to do the challenge. And then they go into the second song, which is Hold Them Down. It's a great villain song. I love the voice of Antinous. He's a
Fantastic.
yeah, excellent villain song where and I also appreciate that Jorge does not shy away from the very very dark aspects of the suitors here. As well he shouldn't. It would have diluted the work if he had. Uh, Antinous gathers the suitors together and says, "I have an idea. Let's kill the princes away. When let's ambush him, chop him up into little pieces, throw him in the water, then just break open Penelope's bedroom door and gang rape her." And this is very very explicit in the song as well. Uh,
What's the subtext, Jorge? There's no subtext. But Jorge, the subtext.
I
I'm
suppose
sorry.
there is some. I suppose there's technically subtext since he never uses the word rape, but it's about as explicit as you could be without actually using the word, right?
Right, right.
Like, like Odysseus uses the word later,
Yes.
uh, and nobody calls it like they go, "No, we never said we would rape." Like, no, that's clearly what they were doing.
Right.
Uh, so hold them down is great. It ends with Antinous getting killed. So okay, you've now condensed it by going. Penelope issues a challenge. Antonella says, "Screw you." Says we've been trying for hours. Nobody's gonna get it done. So you kind of have a bit of a time skip. And then he goes, "Let's just kill Telemachus and rape Penelope." Right? And then Odysseus kills him. And then the third song, Odysseus. So
Mm.
Odysseus is excellent. Fantastic song. Odysseus announces to the suitors, like, yeah, guess what? I just heard your whole little speech, and I'm Odysseus, and now I'm going to kill you all. Uh, now, when you read the original Odyssey, the way that it's framed, the scene does go on a while, right? Like, and it's not as it's not over quickly. It takes them a bit. They try to escape, but it's implied that like the gods keep them from escaping. Uh, Odysseus even dares them to run. He goes, "You could try and leave, but I bet you're not going to make it. You know, good luck." Uh, because Odysseus in the Odyssey is a Chad and a half. So, anyway, in Epic, they don't really explain any of this. It's just implied that he is the only one who is armed. They're not armed, and apparently the palace is locked. When you watch the live stream, he makes this more clear. Like, he goes, everybody's locked inside. You know, fine. And then they have the song is great. There's callbacks to previous songs, like when he says, "Keep your head down." He's aiming for the torches. That's a reference to Scylla. That they're all locked in there with him. That's a reference to Polyphemus, where they're all locked and trapped in the cave with Polyphemus, right?
Yes.
Then you have the moment where Jorge is hunting them throughout the palace. You have this awesome line where they go, "We know these halls. The odds can be tilted." And Odysseus responds with, "You don't think I know my own palace? I've built it." There's some, which is a great line.
Fantastic line.
There's some great use of trying to think of the word of the Odyssey in there. Like, there is a moment in the Odyssey where somebody begs Odysseus for mercy. If you've read it recently, which I just did, in preparation for the stream, there is a line in there where somebody begs Odysseus for mercy, and Odysseus goes basically like, "Are you kidding me? Like, no. Like, you're all going to die." One of them even goes like, "Wait, Odysseus, I was just the singer. I'm not actually with them." And he goes, "So wait a minute, you were their singer? So you probably led prayers with the suitors that I wouldn't show up." And he's like, "Oh, well." And then Odysseus is like, "Yeah, you're gonna die too." Uh, but yeah, like they have a moment in the Odysseus song where he goes, "Old king, our leader is dead. You've destroyed the serpent's head. Show mercy. Let's have open arms instead." And Odysseus just kills him and says no. Right? Now,
Right.
that's from the Odyssey. Somebody basically gives that exact speech or something very similar to it, right?
Yes.
Where they go like, "Hey, you've killed Antinous. We understand why you're offended." He even in the Odyssey, he's like, "We'll even pay you tribute, And Odysseus is like, "No, no, 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 no. Like, this is not how this ends.
We're
You're all going
way
to die."
beyond that.
Yeah, we are far beyond the point where you can just pay tribute and leave. Yeah. Uh, so this is one thing that I want to talk about. In the Odysseus song, there's a great moment in it, and this is again from the Odyssey. They find the weapons room. It's unlocked, and the weapons are inside. Now, in the Odyssey, Telemachus admits that he messed up and left the weapons room unlocked, which, by the way, kind of a big mistake, Telemachus. Like,
Yeah.
you'd think you'd have
Inspired by
double-checked
Athena.
that. You'd think you'd have double-checked that. Uh, but, okay. That's in the Odyssey. What happens in Epic the Musical? In Epic the Musical, they find it, and then you get this great moment where they play, like, hero music, and you hear a little bit of Telemachus' theme and a little bit of Athena's theme, and Telemachus shows up, right? So, and Telemachus has this very interesting line where he says, he shows up, it's not clear in the song, but in the live stream, he immediately kills someone who's picked up a weapon, and it's implied that he's lured them here. What's interesting is the timeline, and this is where, if you want to give a criticism to Odysseus and why it might need to have been broken into two songs. This is where it gets a little confusing. Because according to Hold Them Down, Telemachus was gone on a diplomatic mission. They were going to ambush him. So I guess it's implied that at some point during the time when Odysseus was murdering everyone in the palace, Telemachus showed up, worked out what was going on, and then went to the weapons room and laid a trap. Maybe Athena told him.
Hmm.
I could see Athena telling him maybe, but this is kind of unclear in the song.
I
Either
kind
way,
of,
though.
I do kind of wish, and this isn't really a criticism, just something I want. Not again, not a criticism, but it's like I really wish they had like some bit where like Odysseus and Telemachus meet, and it's like watch your old man work kind of
Beforehand.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean though, because it makes the line kind of like it makes the moment a little confusing timeline wise,
Mm.
right? It like just that Telemachus, I guess, worked out what was going on and decided to lay a trap. Uh, Now, what's interesting is that if you listen to this song, he says, "I don't want to hurt you, but trust me, I've come prepared." And then the suitors say, "No, you messed up because now we're armed and we're all going to we're going to use you as collateral, right?"
Right.
Basically, I'm summarizing what's going on. He has to fight them all off. Now, this is something I do think is a big difference in the live stream versus the song. In the song, you just hear him go, "Get off me, get off me." When I heard it, I had the image of they all like there were 10 people on him at once, like ganging up on him and holding him down. And he had like a hammer because he says we'll break the kid's hands. So he
Yeah.
had like a hammer or a sword over his hand or something. And then Odysseus showed up. But the live stream, that is not what happens. In the live stream, he fights them all off single handedly. And the implication is a lot more that Athena has been training him in the background because he's introduced as the warrior of the mind, which has implications later. So Telemachus is introduced as the warrior of the mind. They say we don't fight fair, and he fights off like 10 of them at once.
Mm.
And he's only caught at the very end of that sequence when the guy goes, "Got him," and then Odysseus stabs him. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very different vibe in the live stream, and I like it more, in my opinion. I like that idea more. So this has an implication later, which we'll talk about when we get to the next song, which is called "I Can't Help But Wonder." But yeah, the Odysseus song ends with Odysseus basically tells them all like, you're well beyond asking for mercy, and you're well beyond negotiating with me. I'm going to kill all of you." Right.
Right.
Uh,
As well, he should. He's justified
yeah,
before the gods.
and for the record, he is like entirely justified in this moment. Like, even the dudes who were like, "Oh, well, maybe we can," now the head of the snake is dead. Well, the second they have a chance to harm his son, they take it. You
Yep.
know, who, by the way, offered them a chance to throw down their weapons and not be hurt, and they don't take it. So that just kind of emphasizes like that was never, yeah, it was never really an option. He had to kill them,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so now you have the next song. I Can't Help But Wonder. I think that Miko, who plays Telemachus, is one of the best singers in the cast. So it was nice to hear him have his duet with Jorge. This is the long-awaited reunion with Telemachus and Odysseus. Uh, there's not much to it, except I found it very moving. I don't know. Yeah, they were gone for a long time, and now they're together and they greet each other. It's very nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
"My son, I'm finally home" is a very touching line. Uh, you've been waiting for it. But then the interesting part, he has his long-awaited reunion with Athena. So Athena had been ambiguously dead uh, from God Games. So now we finally confirm that she is not. And the line she gives to Odysseus is, "I can't help but wonder what this world would be if we all held each other with a bit more empathy. And I can't help but feel like I led you astray." So she's saying that Odysseus is maybe the way that she would have wanted him originally, but that maybe was wrong. Now, what I like about this is that I really enjoy this meaning, and I like the way that Athena worded it. Odysseus's response isn't to say that she's wrong or right. It's to go, well, if you're right, I'm not the one who's going to see it through, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not the guy. You know, you're immortal. Maybe you can make this world come to be, but I can't. But what's implied in the live stream is that the one who's going to kind of see this through is Telemachus, right? And yes, he ends up losing in the fight with the suitors, but he's still young and green and has only just started being trained by Athena, right? Uh, like, there's kind of an implication here that Odysseus it might not be the warrior of the mind that Athena was looking for, but Telemachus might be, right? And maybe it won't be in Odysseus's lifetime, but maybe it'll be Telemachus who tries to bring about her, who brings about her world. And that's why when you see him, he shows up kind of with a blend of both of those philosophies of ruthlessness and open arms, right? I don't want to hurt you, but I've come prepared, right?
Mm.
Kind of a balance. And then finally is the last song, Will You Fall in Love with Me Again? First off, it opens up. I love the first note when he says Penelope, and then you hear the theme played in a bunch of different instruments in the background as he creaks open the bedroom door. Very. It has the proper weight to the moment, in my opinion. Right? Like.
Yes.
I appreciate there's a lot of things. The final song's very good. Yeah. Don't have a lot of criticisms, right? Like, I appreciated that Odysseus was extremely honest with her. I noticed this as I listened to it. If you listen to it, he tells her everything that he did and like doesn't hold back. Right? It says like I traded my friends' lives, like, left a trail of blood everywhere I went, but I did all of it to get back to you. Right?
Yes.
So I appreciate that like Odysseus doesn't try and lie to her, right? He doesn't try and go like he doesn't try and hide what he's become. He's like, this is who I am, take it or leave it, right? And I think that the olive branch scene was very good. Or the olive tree scene, sorry, not the olive branch. The olive scene was very good. So anybody who has read their Odyssey knows that Penelope needs to ensure that he's not just a fake or someone trying to steal her throne. So she asks him to move their wedding bed, which is carved into an olive tree. And Odysseus gets upset because in order to do that, you would need to cut the bed from its roots. So the very fact that she's asking him to move it implies that somebody already cut it out because that's the only way it could be moved, right?
Mm.
And Penelope reveals that he's the only one who knows that, so that proves he must be Odysseus, right? Well, they have that line in this version as well. So I love it. It's great. One thing, my one nitpick of the song, this otherwise excellent song, literally nobody else agrees with me about this. Everybody else praises this line delivery. The singer for Penelope kind of screams the line where she goes, "Only my husband knew that," and so I guess it must be you. She kind of screams it. I'm not a fan of that.
Mm.
Especially because if you hear like the demo version that Jorge sings, he almost laughs the line. He goes like, "Only my husband knew that, so I guess it must be you." Like she almost doesn't believe it.
Yes.
I like that line delivery more.
I mean,
I
I
think
like that implication a lot more.
Yeah. I just think, and it's weird because like it's not like it's not Jorge's version. This is his original version, but he changed it. There is nobody else I know who doesn't like this moment. In fact, everybody goes like, "Oh man, the emotion in that line is so great," and it's true. It is. It's a very like. I don't want to criticize the actress here. She does what she's supposed to with what she's given, right? Like, she nails the line. I'm not saying that she doesn't, but I prefer the little moment of like, there's almost a pause of like, you really like, you really are him, right? Like almost laughing, like I can't believe it. It's really you versus her kind of shouting over him with it. I don't know.
I know what you're
Uh,
talking about. I get you.
yeah. So this is 100% a nitpick. Like, did not ruin my experience watching it. Did not ruin the experience thinking about it. It's not even a bad choice per se. It's just, I guess, like a different one, right?
Mm.
Uh, and then I like the final lines. I will fall in love with you over and over again. I don't care how long or when. And then she says, "Don't tell me you're not the same person. You're my husband," which is great, beautiful, right? That's the resolution that plot arc needed. I think. Uh, if Penelope is to reconcile with him. Last criticism in the live stream: Penelope and Odysseus don't kiss. Why? This isn't a shonen. You could show two characters kissing. That's the one problem with
Anthony,
Full
calm
Metal Alchemist.
down.
I
Calm
know.
down, Anthony.
Bothers me. This is the one my big flaw with the end of Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood as well. That he goes in for the hug with Winry in the final scene. It's like kiss her, Dad, kiss her.
Wasn't his
Uh,
teacher like, kiss her, Ed, kiss her? And he's like, no, I'm scared.
you ever see the line in It's a Wonderful Life when he goes, "Youth is wasted on the wrong people."
Yes, I know it. I kind of disagree with it, but I get it.
I don't think you're supposed to take it seriously. The dude's making a joke in the scene.
Well, it's like when boomers make a "I hate my wife" joke. Are you serious? Are you not serious? I don't know. I don't like it. I'm too
No,
autistic.
oh, wait. We're wasting a moment on this because this is my favorite movie. Uh, you've awakened you've awakened it. Um,
It
okay,
is
so
it
in the
is your
scene,
stream more than mine this time, Anthony.
in the scene, he's watching Jimmy Stewart flirting with Donna Reed, and he says, "Why don't you kiss her already?" And George responds, "You want me to kiss her?" And that's when he says, "Youth is wasted on the wrong people." And George goes, "Well, I'll give her a kissing you won't forget." And Donna Reed runs off and leaves her robe behind, which is the joke of the scene. The point is, in the context of the scene, it is very clear what is being talked about and why. I don't think you're actually supposed to believe it. Uh, Whatever. Anyway, this is my favorite. That's my favorite movie. I'm just wasting a moment defending it. Okay. Anyway, back to the Ithaca Saga. So I gave my spiel. I gave a rundown of each song and what I liked about it. As you've noticed, I don't have any serious criticisms. Um, I have a couple of minor nitpicky ones, and some of the songs I have no real criticisms at all. Like the challenge, no notes. I loved it. Right, hold them down, no notes. I loved it. Uh, and then just a couple of nitpicky criticisms, but overall, as far as wrapping up Epic, I think he did a great job. I think it's very touching. I enjoy listening to it. I'm looking forward to the animatics. What were your thoughts, Ben?
hmm no, it was great. I enjoyed it very much. I think Odysseus was my favorite song. The uh, I guess as anyone who was maybe on Twitter may certainly know, perhaps the scene with the suitors strikes a little close to home. Uh, these ideas that a man can defend his home against all comers, that he even has a duty to, which is must be must act, to be a good man, to be the heroic man, you must defend your home is something I cotton to. So of course this song was going to be kind of the um, make or break for the saga, because a lot of this stuff I personally, maybe when I fall in love and get married and stuff like that, I'll get it. But like I don't get it. I don't get the whole Penelope thing. I get it in an academic concept, but as a
No,
what's up?
no,
What do
that's
you?
it. That's the whole commentary.
Okay. Uh, maybe I'll get being separated from your wife and all that jazz when I'm married, but I don't now. The Telemachus thing as well. So really the only thing that really has struck with me on this part of the Odyssey is basically killing the traitorous elements of his household and killing every single SOB suitor that um, dared to interfere with his wife and family. Uh, these I'm actually of the opinion that it should have been split up into two, just because it does feel like there's two different concepts, and I felt that there could have been more suitor killing. Once you pop, you just don't stop, as the saying
Mm.
goes. Uh, but it's one of those things where it's a I want rather than an actual criticism. The song is great. Um, I do feel that whatever the animatic says, uh, I do feel that Telemachus is getting his ass handed to him. Uh, like,
Yeah, if you want to say there's a flaw in the song, I would say that it sounds a little bit too much like Telemachus is just getting beat down, right?
yes. And so
Because
there's,
what's he say? Like he goes, get off me," and
yeah,
that's
something
kind
like
of
that.
yeah.
And it's like, yeah, you can say that while having a fight. Like, I've said some things in the fights or on occasion, but it's like, for like fights on the stage are different than fights in real life. They're cleaner, they're choreographed, they're set up for actors who are, of course, limp wristed and unable to actually throw a punch, to throw punches convincingly for the audience. So it's hard to criticize it really. Uh, us like I don't like it. I felt that this was a mistake, but at the same time, you know, I'm not even sure. It makes a better impression of Odysseus saving Telemachus later, um, and then uh,
Yeah, I sort of get your
hmm,
criticism though, because it's like if you're communicating visually, which to be fair, eventually this is I'm sure this is going to be released in some sort of full visual media,
yes,
whether it's the stage play that Jorge envisions or a movie, which I think it should be. Uh, I very much hope it's just made into an animated movie. I don't even think he should bother doing the stage play thing, to be honest with you.
mm,
But whatever, it's not my choice. It's up to him. Uh, but when it's portrayed visually, that will change things. However, this is a concept album at the moment, right? Yes, there are animatics that go with it, but ultimately you can download the music on Spotify. And if
mm,
you were to download the song Odysseus, you would not think that Telemachus was getting his licks in. It just doesn't
yes,
sound that way. These suitors aren't acting like they're getting beaten, and Telemachus is acting like he's getting beaten,
yep,
at least verbally. Now, this is not it's not so overwhelming. I wouldn't say that the visual is jarring or anything. It's not. It makes perfect sense when you watch
yes,
it. Um it's not like Telemachus sounds like he's getting the stuffing knocked out of him or anything. But nevertheless, I would say if you want to nitpick the song, this is a nitpick that's
yes,
legitimate. Right? Um so I would agree with you.
yeah. So it's yeah, and it's when it like it's an awkward thing where um I have criticism. I feel that that's a strong point, but in reality, it's a very successful song, and I don't want to undersell it to the audience. It's a great song. He kills a lot of suitors. I appreciate that. Like, sure, it's not like the show where uh, what's the name of the lead suitor?
Antinous.
Antinous. Thank you. Antinous is like stabbed and jammed up against the wall so hard he's stuck there, and the actor like screams, giving it his all. I mean, as a 9-year-old, this was fantastic. Like, oh
Mm,
yes, give me that violence. My mom was totally okay with this, by the way. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, so like to me that's what uh what am I thinking about?
You're going over what you like and dislike about the songs you're on.
Yeah. I'm
Odysseus, you said you thought it was mostly successful.
yeah. I'm just trying to figure out how I want to say this about the Antinuous sort of like not his death. His death is very fantastic. Is exactly what it needed to be dramatically. He has his villain song and then he's killed. Um,
Yep.
no notes. Uh, but it's like part
By
of
the
the
way, that
hold
was
on.
an excellent villain song.
That was an excellent villain song. And he's like whispering to them, he's seducing them into it. It's
Hmm.
fantastic. I'll talk about that in a minute because I do have something to say about that. So, what am I trying to say? Part of the satisfaction of the Odyssey is the fulfillment of the murder of the suitors, which could be seen coming a mile away. Uh, it could be seen coming a mile away. There's absolutely no reason it shouldn't be done. It's honorable before the gods. So it's going to happen. But part of the satisfaction is seeing all their deaths and having scenes of badassery from Odysseus as he kills them all. He's a veteran of the Trojan War, for Pete's sake. He can certainly have some ultra violence while we hear their deaths on screen, it's not like he gives more care to Poseidon's torture than to this. But the thing is that like it's not even really a criticism because I come back all the way around, and it's like, well, Poseidon was the main villain, and his torture is part of the climax as much as the suitors are. It's a personal climax for Odysseus before the story goes into its finale. Um, uh, the suitors have to be taken care of, so he can spend time to lovingly draw out the torture of Poseidon. But with the suitors, it's like there's 108 of them. You know, we could have done for a bit more deaths, which is why I believe it could be split up a little bit more. And since they didn't include the maid or the other things that usually enhance the slaying, because it means that Odysseus also kills the servants, the slaves, and so on that worked with him, it's a little bit anemic compared to what I wanted. But that's its own thing. Like, I'm complaining of anemia, but it's still perfectly healthy. Now,
Yeah, if you read the Odyssey, there's a great, very like. Once again, I am struck as I read it, like just how touching and like how human these stories are. There's a great little moment where he goes like, "All right, there are 50 maids that need to be killed," and in an incredibly cold-blooded move, he has the maids clean up the dead bodies before Telemachus hangs them all. Uh, which I love it. Fantastic.
yeah, it is
But
fantastic.
anyway, then the good maids are brought out, which like it's implied that there are still many good like loyal servants, right?
Yes.
And they say like the good maids come out and they run up to Odysseus and are greeting him. And they said and Odysseus is tearing up and it says because he knew them all. So
Yes.
it's implied like one of the reasons this is deserving of such a harsh punishment is that Odysseus really was a very good master,
Mm.
right? Like that he knew all the maids by name 20 years later, you know,
Yep.
and they still remembered him and loved him. And he's emotional upon seeing them again, right? Like the implication here is that they were, basically the idea behind the Odyssey is that like they tried to they bet on the wrong course,
Yes.
right? They were betting on the suitors to take over, and Odysseus showed up in time, and he goes, "Yeah, well, this is what you get for betting on the wrong course, right?"
Yep. Well deserved. Traitors all.
Mm. Yep.
Uh. Yes.
But yeah, what thoughts on the other songs? Because you had some from
Yeah.
before.
So I kind of agree with you with Penelope. However, I'm not going to really put it as a mark against it as harshly as you have, just because it works as an emotional thing.
Oh, it's not a harsh mark. It's like literally pretty much
Excuse me.
the only thing I could say about it that wasn't I love it. It's great. You know.
Yes. Um, excuse me. I shouldn't play the game while I talk. Uh, Other songs, Antinous seducing the suitors into attacking Penelope and Telemachus was a fantastic choice. Um, I've always felt that 10 years is a weirdly long time to wait for the suitors to act, but quite frankly, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what you do with it. However,
It's implied that Penelope is kind of using all of her wits and political capital to keep them at bay for just enough time
yes.
for Odysseus to show up again, right?
Oh, yeah, I
Like
agree. Like that.
that's the implication.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. But it's one of those things where, like, I don't know. I feel like either they're like like what are I guess they're all just like freeloaders. Like they're just not doing anything for 10 years. Um,
Well, yeah, the problem is we don't really know what happened for the full 10 years, right?
yes,
We only see the end of it.
they
So,
might have only
what were
shown
they
up in the
doing?
last 5 years or something. I don't know.
Yeah, they could have shown up in the last fight. They could have shown up in the last couple of years, for all we know. You know, uh, or it could have been that maybe they do go home, like every now and then they swap out with other suitors, but there's 108 regular. I don't know,
Yeah,
right? We just don't know enough. I don't think.
yeah,
But yeah, the implication in the Odyssey, and it's not even an implication. It's pretty explicit. Is that
yeah.
like basically Penelope has used up all of her political capital and goodwill and cunning to keep the suitors at bay, and this is literally like Odysseus arrives just in the nick of time because she has run out. You know, like she doesn't have any left. That's why she has to organize the challenge.
Mm,
Although what's interesting is in the Odyssey, it's actually Odysseus that tells her to run the challenge. Agamemnon incorrectly says it was Odysseus's idea. That's not true. It was Penelope's idea. I reread it and checked. Agamemnon's exaggerating. Uh,
okay.
but like however, she does say, I was gonna do this challenge because I honestly like. She goes, I don't want to, but I gotta do something now, right? And Odysseus in disguise tells her, no, no, run the challenge. Like, trust me, it'll be fine. Uh, and then she goes, oh, well, okay. Like I said, I've always taken the rather boring position that if you read the Odyssey, it's pretty clear that she doesn't recognize Odysseus.
Right.
Um, I know that people really, really, really want her to, and I don't think I've ever seen an adaptation that has included this detail that hasn't had her recognize him. Uh, Nevertheless, in the original poem, his disguise is given to him by Athena. It's a magic disguise. Like
Mm,
it's not like she just didn't notice. Um, and honestly, her actions don't really make sense if she recognized him. Like she would have been scheming with him if that were
yes.
the case. Uh, so yeah, I know that that's boring and nobody wants to hear it. Everybody's like, no, no, but they're such a cute couple. Like they want them to be together, and she recognizes him, but she doesn't. It's pretty clear that she doesn't. Uh, I mean, yeah, no, that's all I really gotta say about that part. That's not in this version of it. He condenses it, and that it's. I'm not even sure that Penelope sees him up until he murders everyone at the end.
Right. Hmm. Fair enough.
All right, we're at 8:10. So go and go. We've been over. Epic the Musical. You don't have a lot to say about I Can't Help But Wonder, right? Just good song, but not really what
Mm,
you connect with, correct?
yeah, I mean it's one of those things where um,
I
yeah,
felt some things at My Son, I'm Finally Home.
yeah, but it's hmm, I don't know.
I,
It
I, I was touched. And I was,
yeah.
yeah, like, I'm not a Tumblr user, so I'm not in tears as I listen to the songs, but uh, I am, I am, I'm invested, right? I am invested, properly
Yes.
speaking. You know, it's a work of fiction that I am genuinely like. I want a good outcome for the characters, unironically, right?
Hmm.
So sure, I felt something at the moment. So Epic the Musical is now finished. Do you have any overall thoughts on Epic?
I think Epic the Musical was fantastic. It was very good, very well worth the watch. Um, Certainly something to go back to and enjoy in future times. If it became a show, and I would go and watch it at the St. Louis, whatever is playing it. Um, it's one of those things where I genuinely enjoyed what was given to me. And I think that's the most important part of this sort of thing. Like whether or not uh, you enjoyed this product. You know, it didn't feel like slop. It didn't feel like some sort of woke nonsense where I have to accept Odysseus being like gay or something.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's exactly what it needs to be. It's perfectly reasonable. It is well worth the time spent on it. Um, I could sing its praises forever just because it is a fantastic piece that truly captures the spirit of the original and like even even my complaints about things like the Cyclops saga, where I just don't like the voice of Polyphemus, is entirely something that's to my taste, rather than um, I don't
An
know,
objective issue.
an objective issue. Yep, that's a good way to put it. And I think that's important for people to sort of consider. If you come up against some criticism or whatever, is it an objective issue, or is it an objective issue, or is it something that can be set aside um, for the sake and goodness of the piece that you're watching? And
Mm.
I think people don't understand that nearly as well as they should, because
Yeah,
mm,
no, I'm agreeing. I'm disagreeing. I was gonna say this is one of the reasons I like Mahler, because as much as I don't agree with everything Mahler does, and I don't think he would call himself like conservative or right wing or anything.
yeah,
Uh, he very, very specifically, like I hear him. I've actually heard him in discussion specifically go quiet and like refuse to answer questions because he does not want to be like pinned down politically. Uh, but But Mahler stands on the idea that there is such a thing as objective quality.
yes,
It is like the cornerstone of his channel. Say what you will about like Long Man Bad, or that he's too hypercritical or any number of things. The fact is, we need more of that. And
yes,
I also appreciate that he will call out other creators, even supposedly beloved ones. Like H Bomber guy makes his ludicrous 10-hour friggin' videos, and Mahler will respond and go, "No, dude, this video was terrible." Uh, and he'll make like a 10-hour response video to him, going.
yep,
And to be honest with you, we actually need that. We need people to be called out for the fact that what you're doing, what you're asking us to pay attention to you for, and to get paid for, right, is criticism, and you are
yes,
doing a bad job. right? And this is not a subjective thing. I'm not saying I don't like it. I am saying it is poor criticism. You need to do better, right? Like that's the key difference here. We're gonna talk about the person who gave the terrible critique, but I want you to finish your thoughts first.
Yes. You mentioned H bomber guy. There's also an important bit where it's like, where does and you'll mention this as well, I'm sure, in some other way. But there's also like, who does this critique come from? H bomber guy is not a friend. He is nowhere near a friend. He is a barely sentient, degenerate pile of YouTuber crap. Who openly wears his degeneracies on his sleeves. And if there's a bandwagon to follow, you better believe he's lubed up and ready to follow it, and try to run it and get ahead of it to it. It's absolutely disgusting what he is and what he does. I've got no desire to listen to his stuff, to be around him. If he was around him, I would probably leave, just because he would likely draw out some sort of degeneracy, which is neither healthy nor proper for the Christian uh, to get involved with. He attacked people we would consider more on friendly terms, like when I'm sure he's probably attacked Wendigo, or maybe he doesn't dare, but he's gone after people like Internet Historian. When somebody basically copy pasted Wikipedia or whatever, or some article and didn't
Well,
edit
he
it
called out
properly.
Internet Historian for plagiarism.
Yes,
That was the big thing. I don't know anything about it. For all I know, he was right, but
I mean
that
he.
doesn't mean that
So
I
no,
like
no,
him.
hold on. He was right, but the thing is that it was on a video that was already taken down and edited. So somebody pointed it out, and the Internet Historian took care of it. Like, these aren't academic people. I don't give a fuck about plagiarism. Like, the idea that plagiarism is something that some internet comedian has to worry about, you got to be kidding me. How many people Owen Benjamin could sue? He's basically 5 years ahead of Dave Chappelle. Like, it's nonsense for people on the internet to go like, it's plagiarized, and it's like a slop account. The slop account plagiarized an article. It's a slop account. It's a YouTube commentary channel. They're nothing. They're less than nothing, which I'm sure it will come into what you're about to talk about on criticism. Like, literally
Yeah.
ignore them. Like H bomber guy is a disgusting degenerate. All these people are generally degenerate. Uh, except for Wendigoon. And I have a little picture of Wendigoon. I'm like rubbing across the beard. Uh, you know, no, it's it's really frustrating for me to see that, and then people go like, "Well, it was like this," and it's like, no, it was like 2 lines. It was like a paragraph. Like, what do you mean that this is like, so we're supposed to like object? Do you denounce Internet Historian because H Bomber Guy? Do you denounce? No. This is, I don't give a fuck what he says, what he does, what he cares about. He can't keep his sexual mores in line, and unlike a good sexual degenerate, he doesn't keep it quiet in between him and his God. I find him disgusting. Uh,
Very good.
yeah.
I
Any,
don't listen to him. I only know that he accused Internet Historian, who I also don't listen to. Like,
Internet Historian's great.
uh, I know he accused Internet Historian. I maybe watched a
Yeah.
bit of that video when it came out. I don't care.
Because it
It
had
doesn't matter to
Wendigoon in
me.
it.
Well, no. So I think you're right when they go. They wouldn't dare take on Wendigoon. One guy did once, and just there's nothing there with for when like there's nothing with Wendigoon. He's
Yes.
like the nicest guy. So you're just gonna get taken down if you try to use him as an example of Christians bad. It's just not gonna work because like He's clearly not bad.
Right.
he's he's just a very nice guy. Who lives in Appalachia, cares about, or used to, knows people there at least,
Oh
right?
no, he's done
Uh,
a lot. He's actually
yeah,
helping build
cares
a
about the
charity.
people there. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Cares
Anyway,
about the people
yeah.
there, genuinely loves them. But then you go like, oh, but he's in. But that's why Wendigoon is honestly, for the record, like while we're on the subject, Wendigoon is an absolutely brilliant asset for our side and for the right. We need people like him who are like he's not so. We need like the Vox Days of the world, right?
Yes.
And the controversial people. We need them as well. The Milos as well, right?
Yes.
Like they're necessary. I'm not saying they're not, nor am I denigrating the work they do, but we need the Wendigoons as well to be
Mm-hmm.
like, go ahead, I dare you. Like, yeah, he's into guns and conspiracy theories. What did he possibly do that you have a problem with? And there's just nothing.
Oh yeah.
Like there's absolutely nothing. He's very polite to everybody. He is like just a genuinely nice guy, but he's into these guns and conspiracy theory type things. I'm not saying that everybody should be like Wendigoon. You need people who are willing to get dirty.
Yes.
However, the fact that Wendigoon exists is a very good thing for our side. Um, like he is very much an asset.
Yes. Anyway, I know that's a bit of a rant that people may or may not be ready for or whatever, but it's certainly something that's been kind of building up because it like especially with like internet historian because it was a video that Windigoon was in on and acted in. It's like some intern didn't edit something. Like you're telling me that you've never plagiarized in your life? Uh, yeah.
I get you, but
It's just a bother. Like no, but it's what I'm trying. Sorry, Anthony. I know I'm talking over you, but
no,
it's like
no, you're good.
what I'm trying to get at is like there's like appropriate means of criticism and there's appropriate means of things like internet commentary. And the question is that are you doing slop or not? Like Pinkerton's Ghost is not slop. The work of Vox Day and Academic Agent and other political commentators, aren't slop. Owen Benjamin isn't slop. Milo isn't slop. What's slop? It's like H Bomber Guy. You know, he's not. He didn't even like talk about the plagiarism thing for Internet Historian in its hour. He brought it up like months later. Like it was a big gotcha thing. Like he was proud of it. Like I felt my bile rising. I never should have watched that video. Um, but I was, doing internet work, and you
I
want
get you.
noise on in the background. But it's like,
So
you know, anyway, that's what I'm
I
saying.
want to
Like,
bring it back. I want to bring it back to Epic briefly. We're nearing the end. I'm okay with ending it
eh,
at 8:30
no,
because
no,
this
no,
isn't a super intense stream.
no, but
Um,
bring up what you were going to talk about. I'll
yeah. So
rant
you know
about them
this.
another day.
This is another little rant. So going into Epic, first off, what do I think of Epic? Obviously, I've been a fan for longer than Ben. Actually, I introduced it to him.
Yes.
My sister introduced it to me, kind of. I found a clip of it one day pop up of Warrior of the Mind, specifically the song. And I heard it and I'm like, hey, it's kind of a bop, but I didn't really like that Jorge, how casual Odysseus was in the song, because he goes, you are Athena, badass in the arena, uh, unmatched, witty, and queen of the best strategies we've seen. I heard that line. I'm like, it's good, it's catchy, it's a little too casual. Now, having heard the full song, that actually makes more sense. That was child Odysseus saying that. So it's literally supposed to be a little bit more childish. Uh, but yeah, it's my overall thoughts on Epic. I loved it. I really only have one major story criticism, and that's I don't like the wind jetpack. And to call it a major story criticism is a stretch. I guess it's like I would say the one thing I would change about the story in any meaningful way. Everything else I have when you go into individual songs is a nitpick, but I wouldn't change the direction of it, right?
Hmm.
Like the Wisdom Saga, for example, in God Games. God Games, I don't think is a perfect song. I think it's a good song. Uh, there are things I would change about it. However, I wouldn't change like the direction that Jorge went, which is Athena bargains on behalf of Odysseus and is blasted down by Zeus, and her sacrifice moves Zeus to free Odysseus. Right? That in a vacuum, I think is great. Yeah. no issues. Very creative, very interesting. Um, if I had to praise Epic for
Mm,
one thing specifically, I would say I really, really appreciate the way that Epic portrays the gods. I think they're fantastic in Epic. Um,
yes.
Honestly, better than I've seen in almost any other medium. He nails the gods. Uh, Zeus, Hermes, all of them. They're perfect, right?
Oh yeah.
Um, it's exactly how I would imagine someone would deal with them. I understand someone could, I guess, if you're being really, really, really critical, you could argue that Athena acts a little bit anachronistic, but I would argue that that's the character that Jorge is portraying her, right?
Mm,
Like I don't think that's really. I would say that that's not really a fair critique, you know. Like yes, she's a little bit more concerned with mercy and all of that near the end there. Then I guess she would be in ancient Greece, but she's supposed to have undergone a character arc. That's the whole point, that she's coming to a new perspective, right? So it's not really a
mm,
flaw, I wouldn't say. Um, yeah, no, I love it. I think it's great. I love the Thunder Saga. I love like again, there are nitpicks in the individual songs, right? Like Mutiny should have been two songs, is the big one. Um, Mutiny should have been two songs, and we should have gone a little bit more on like why Eurylochus was doing what he was doing.
mm.
Explaining his perspective. But the sequence of events of Odysseus sacrifices 6 men to Scylla, Eurylochus figures this out, runs a mutiny, and then Odysseus is forced to choose himself or his crew. Love it. Great. Right? Like, excellently done. Excellent writing decisions. Uh, Genuinely surprising as well. I had my own predictions when the Thunder Saga was coming out, and I was not correct. Uh, so, like, I was very invested in the story at that point. Excellent. Excellently done. So, yeah, no, and I think it showed proper respect to the Odyssey. It was not the Odyssey. He very much was doing his own thing. He was very open about the fact he was doing his own thing, but it's very clear that Jorge loved the Odyssey. Like, there was a proper, there were homages, he was paying respect to the way that Homer set up certain story beats, using them in creative ways. You know, so yeah, I loved Epic. If I had to say my quick thing, favorite moments, "Love in Paradise" is my favorite song. Uh, I love everything about it. It's honestly probably one of my favorite like musical theater songs ever. Uh, just how everything comes together in that moment is beautifully done. Uh, Thunderbringer has some of my favorite lyrics to any song ever, and that is to my mind like the canon portrayal of Zeus. It's how I imagine Zeus is Thunderbringer.
Yes.
Not
Yep.
even, and I'm not even like the animatic is fantastic too, but even just the song itself, like it's how I imagine Zeus. Uh, Ruthlessness is excellent. Is an excellent villain song. Really, really great. And it's a very impactful moment to see Odysseus' entire crew just get shattered. Uh, No Longer You has amazing lyrics. That is how you write a prophecy. That's like my go-to if I were to show people like how do you write a properly ambiguous prophecy, because prophecies are very, very tricky to write because they need to give just enough information that you don't feel cheated, but not so much that you're actually giving something away, right?
Mm-hmm.
And No Longer You nails it, hits the balance. The line itself of No Longer You is an amazing line. It's so impactful in the moment. And it has that perfect balance of when you first hear it, you probably react the way Odysseus does. You need to think about it for just a second, and then it becomes clear what is meant. But it's that 1 second of immediate reaction of what do you mean no longer you, right? That makes it such
Mm.
an impactful line. Uh, so great. Yeah, and finally, I would say the big revelation for me of the singers was Tegan Early, who played Athena. I know enough about music and music theory and like singing, not to be an expert, but to know what it means for someone to be good, if that makes sense. Like,
Yes.
and Tegan Early is one of the most talented singers I've ever heard. Uh, one of the tells that you can get when to tell if someone is extremely talented. She plays Athena, by the way, for people listening. One of the tells for how you could tell that someone is extremely talented is how do they portray emotion when they sing. You could hear a not bad but average or mediocre singer doing this in Anne Hathaway's performance in Les Miserables. So if you she won the Oscar for this. She sings I Dreamed a Dream. It's very emotional. She's crying throughout the song, right? The problem is she's crying throughout the song. She is messing up the song, right? She's
Mm.
not singing it, she's crying it. Tegan Early can show emotion, but when she shows emotion, she doesn't lose the notes, right?
Ooh.
She's hitting it while showing emotion. That is insanely difficult. Like, that's an unreal level of vocal control. Like, if you listen to My Goodbye, for example, you could hear when she goes, "You're not looking for a mentor, I mistook you for a general." There's a little bit of growl in there, right? Like, just a little bit. But she is nailing the notes dead on. But you can feel just these very subtle inflections in her voice as she does it, where you could feel the conflicting emotions of Athena in the song. Uh, insane levels of talent, just insane. Uh, so yeah, she was my biggest revelation in the cast. The last thing I want to talk about before we go, now that we've sung the praise of Epic, highly recommended. I am going to be following the project. If he puts up a Kickstarter for a movie or play, I will probably donate to it. Uh, just because I want to see it succeed. I'd like to see this grow. I hope I have mixed feelings about him making an Iliad project because I am almost 100% sure he's going to gay Achilles and Patroclus. Uh,
Yes. I don't think
there
he'll
is,
understand it at all.
I mean, there is a chance that uh, he will make it ambiguous, which would be okay, and I would live with it.
Yeah.
But if he gays it, I won't listen. I'll have to turn it off. And you're right. Very, very, very brief rant on this because I feel very passionately
Rant.
about this. Achilles, yes, Achilles and Patroclus are not gay. They never were gay. That misunderstands the story in a very important and fundamental way if you think they are gay. Like, genuinely, it's not just like, oh, it's an alternate interpretation. No, it's not. You don't get the story. Uh, Achilles' problem throughout the Iliad is that he doesn't hit the golden mean, like Aristotle talks about, right?
Mm.
Uh, Achilles' emotions are always too strong, one way or the other, right? His rage is too strong. First, it prevents him from fighting, and then it leads to people dying. And then after Achilles is fighting, it leads to him killing too much, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and then it also leads to with Patroclus, like the way he reacts to Patroclus's death is too strong. That's the issue, right? Like
Mm.
his reaction to his death is not within the proper mean of a warrior, right? Not within that golden mean of a warrior. Uh, he reacts to it too intensely. That's not how you're supposed to react to the death of a brother in arms at war, right?
Right.
Uh, that's not to say though, like to turn that into oh the emotion is so strong it must be romantic is to miss the point of the story, right? The point you don't need that. It's not necessary for it to work. The problem is not that he had romantic feelings for Patroclus. The issue is that he reacted to Patroclus in too intensely, right?
Mm.
Like that's the real issue. And yeah, like to interpret that and say, "Oh, well, the feelings were so strong 'cause they were really romantic," is to fundamentally miss the point of the Iliad, right? They're
Right.
not so strong because they're romantic. They're so strong because Achilles is out of whack. He's reacting like he's not in the Greek mean. He is reacting to things in the wrong way. And the story can only end when finally the king of Troy is able to bring Achilles back to the mean, right? And that ends the story.
Yes.
Uh, okay, rant over. So, but that's an important rant. I'm happy I did it. Uh, okay, so Epic the Musical. It has gotten pretty much universal praise from everyone, and I've seen a lot of different reactors. There's like the best is an opera singer because he knows his stuff, so he's really good. Gives a lot of very interesting insights if you like that sort of thing, which I do. Uh, some of them are just like it's just some guy reacting, and that's like whatever. But there was
Wow.
one.
Ooh, that's cool. I hope he kills them suitors. I know
Yep,
it's a hot take, but I really hope he kills them all.
yep.
That's up
Uh,
there with like Hitler bad.
I know.
Suitors need to die, also Hitler bad.
There was one that was like I'm not going to go off on this person because it wasn't like the worst take in the world, but she called herself a fantasy writer. But then she was misunderstand. But then she was making comments about the story, like, "See, this is the problem with being a writer. Like, what's Odysseus's arc here?" And I like was going, "What on earth are you talking about, you dumb bitch?" See, now I can't say her name because I really don't think that about this person. Like, I don't know her at all. I'm not gonna insult her, but uh, you know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
Um, okay, I am gonna call this person out by name. This is in the spirit of what I was talking about before, with like Mahler calls people out for bad critiques. There's a person who calls herself Aster Rhyme Master. So previously, the premier music critic on YouTube was Sideways. Uh, Sideways was the best. I loved him. His channel is still great to listen to and to uh, genuinely you will learn something, right? Amazing channel. I love it.
Mm.
So Aster he's disappeared for a while now. I think he made like one community post saying, "I'm coming back, guys," and then just never did. uh,
We all
which is
have
too
blogs
bad.
like that.
We do. Uh, I content myself by pointing out to people on my blog, like, I am active on the internet, just not here. But like, you can find me at Pinkerton's Ghosts. No. In the Superversive live stream.
And Hightower.
Yeah, there you go. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Point is, he never ended up coming back, which is too bad because honestly, like, you will learn a lot from his channel. I did. So
Mm.
there was this person who kind of came up in the aftermath, I guess. Like, she kind of filled the void that Sideways held. She called herself Aster Rhyme Master. I don't care about the name. It's a fine YouTube name. It's whatever, right? So I'm
Mm-hmm.
not here to mock the name. We'll call her Aster. Uh, her big thing was lyrical analysis. Now, I will note to you, and I am proud to say this because it ended up being my instincts were correct, and it is to my credit. I was not a subscriber to her channel, despite listening to a couple of videos, because I wasn't particularly impressed with her. She would go after like easy targets, like the Disney live action remakes, you know, uh, and stuff like that. And she would just like hyper focus on the lyrics with a magnifying glass and just go like, see, this doesn't work 'cause it's not in like, you need to hit a certain rhythm and there are certain words, you have to go in a certain order. I can imagine that to people who like are easily impressed by such things, she probably sounded like she really knew her stuff and was very smart, right?
Mm.
um, because she was able to give specifics. I was just like, I don't know, this is kind of easy picking, and I'm not like impressed with the depth of the insights that she's giving.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I'm not gonna subscribe. Well, I learned later from my sister that she did like a 4 hour stream on Epic because people had been bothering her to do a stream on Epic. Now, the first thing I'm going to mention is that if you listen to the stream, I don't have any sort of relationship with Jorge, none whatsoever, except that he seems like a vaguely likable guy, you know, and I appreciate that he always that he takes time to appreciate his fans. This is something that I value a lot. Uh, but outside of that, do not care about Jorge, right? Like, don't know him as a person, don't want to know him as a person, to be frank. Although, actually, Jorge, if you're listening, you can join us on the show. We'll interview you. Uh, I changed my mind. I lied. I do want to know you as a person. Uh,
Jorge, please, I didn't mean it.
I didn't mean it. If you want to interview with us, we'll interview you. Uh, but no, really, like I don't know him, right? She was like clearly contemptuous of Jorge, and I I'm gonna tell you, like, as somebody who has been in theater for years and like was in theater in high school, I see the writing on the wall immediately. There were girls who the other girls in theater were jealous of. That was really obvious because it was always like the prettiest and most talented girls. They all hated, right?
Mm.
Um, and if you had asked them if they were jealous, they would have denied. They would have like died before admitting it, right? And I think they were telling the truth. They would never, they didn't view it as them being jealous, but to anybody with half a brain and any amount of objectivity, that's clearly what it was, right?
Mm.
Um, I say all this to say that Aster was clearly jealous of Jorge, right? Like, clearly. She fancied herself a songwriter, she fancied herself a creator, and along comes this guy, and you could kind of hear the contempt in her voice when she talked about him, who puts out a musical on friggin' TikTok that goes viral. And honestly, guys, did you even listen to it? It's not even that good. Like, look, there's so many weird lyric choices. Like, you all think it's good. But he has such a big ego. By the way, she talked about his big ego multiple times. This is as far as I could tell, based on literally nothing. Um, when she was asked about it, she said something like, "Oh, I heard his TikToks. It sounded like he had an ego." It's like, based on what? Like, what are you talking about? I don't understand. Like, um, I guess that he was excited about his work, and she thought his work wasn't very good. So how dare he be so excited about such a mediocrity? Like, that's the train of thought. Um, yeah, like she would also like she would try very hard not to praise the songs. It was very clear. So so she would be listening to a song, and if a lyric was good, she would just go, "Yeah, that's good. That's good. I like the repetition. That's fine." And then she would pause and spend like a full minute criticizing a single word in a song. Okay, this is what I really want to get into. Her critiques were so bad. It was honestly like destroyed all credibility with her. They were like the worst thing I've ever seen. Um, so you get to, for example, like this was her criticism of the Troy saga. So she goes through the first song. Now, for the record, I think there are like awkward lyrical choices in some of the songs sometimes, right? Like this isn't you don't need to be you can be a fan of the musical and admit that sometimes this is the case. It's not that big a deal, right?
It
But
definitely stops happening later on in the musical.
it's better later, I would say.
Yes.
But for example, here's a line she criticized that I would say is a fair-ish criticism. In the first song, "The Horse and the Infant," he says, "Menelaus will take." Will I'm trying to remember the exact line, but it's like he uses the line, "He'll take the city at large," and she stops and goes, "What's take the city at large mean? Like, shouldn't you just be saying take the city?" He was clearly forcing it for the rhyme. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I sort of get what you're saying, right?
Yes.
Like, it's not terrible or anything, but it's kind of forced. Yeah,
Mm.
whatever. I'll accept it as a nitpick. Uh, but moving on, then she goes. This is where like the first moment that made me go, I'm sorry, what? There's a line where he goes, "All right, my brothers, listen closely. Tonight we'll make the Trojans pay. 10 years of war, they killed us slowly." Now, first, she went a long rant on how they killed us slowly is wrong. Because that means, like, she's saying that means that, like, they killed us, like, by slowly torturing us, when clearly he means they whittled us down slowly. Again, I actually don't think that that's as legitimate of a nitpick. I think if nobody is going to take it that way, then that means it wasn't taken that way, right?
Yes.
So there's no criticism there, right? Nobody understood it that way, therefore the line was perfectly clear. Um, but moving on, this was the bigger thing. She says, "Tonight we'll make the Trojans pay. 10 years of war, they killed us slowly, and now we'll be the ones who slay." She started going on a very weird long rant about how slay was wrong, And the reason that slay was wrong is because, like, it has the wrong connotation. What he really means is we'll be the ones who conquer, or we'll be the ones who take. And this is where I pause. I'm like, no, what are you talking about? That's like absolutely not what he means. He doesn't just mean conquer. He doesn't just mean cake. He specifically means slay. He literally starts off by going, we're going to make the Trojans pay. This is revenge. They're not just going to take the city, they're going to kill them all. Like, that's the point of the line. That's why he uses the word slay. Slay is absolutely the right word here. But she spends so long on why this is a bad word. And then she makes another very strange and completely incorrect comment where she says the way that musicals work, and she says, I want you to pay attention to this. Because in a musical, it's supposed to be that when you are in a moment of high emotion, that's when you go into song. You talk until the emotions get too big, and then you sing until the emotions get too big, and then you dance. Now, I know what she's talking about, and she is correct about Broadway musicals, Broadway style musicals, right? That's how those numbers work. It's how Disney style musicals work, right? Think of the classic Disney Renaissance movies. That's the structure they use, the classic Broadway style structure. You talk until you need to sing, you sing until you need to dance, right? Okay. The problem with this, and why it's entirely wrong in this context, is that Epic is not a Broadway style musical or a Disney style musical. It's a sing through musical. Sing through musicals don't function under those rules. They function more with the rules of an opera where everything is sung, right? You don't just sing in moments of high emotion. You also sing about, say, if you go back to Les Miserables, which is a sing through musical. One of the songs in Les Miserables, which is a good musical and considered a good musical, by the way, is called Master of the House. Master of the House is literally a song that introduces characters called the Thénardiers and talks about how they run an inn. That's it. That is the point of the song. Like, there is nothing else going on in this song except maybe like another character's introduced at the end of it. But the running through line of the song is, hi, we're the Thénardiers, this is our job. Right? Clearly, this was not a moment that was so emotional they needed to sing. But, of course, they had to sing about it, because if you're going to introduce the Thénardiers in a sing-through musical, everything is sung, right? Like,
Right.
So, the function that she's talking about, oh, it needs to be in moments of high emotion, like, every song needs to be in a moment of high emotion, is straight up wrong, right? Like, that's not correct when you're talking about Epic, because Epic's a sing-through musical. Everything is sung in Epic, not just certain moments. So she's wrong about the lyric slay. The lyric slay is a perfectly appropriate lyric for the moment. In fact, it's a very good lyric. She's also wrong about the structure of Epic. So immediately that tells you that she is misunderstanding Epic on a fundamental level. She doesn't understand what Jorge is doing with it. She is not going to be able to critique it properly in any case, right? But you can move on from there. There's a great line at the end of The Horse and the Infant. One of my favorite lines in the entire show. When Jorge, or I should say Odysseus, is arguing with Zeus, right, about killing the infant at the end of the song. And he goes, I could raise him as my own. He will burn your house and throne, right? Like,
Yep.
and then it ends with, this is the will of the gods. And then Zeus says this. The blood on your hands is something you won't lose. All you can choose is whose. Great line. Haunting.
Yes.
Right?
Zeus has low-key the best lines in the series, by the way.
Oh, he does. Yeah. He absolutely does. The blood on your hands is something you can't lose. All you can choose is whose. Haunting line. Brilliant. Excellent. No notes, right? She went on a long rant on how the line didn't make any sense. Because Odysseus hasn't actually done anything yet. So whose blood is on his hands that he can't lose? Like, and I'm like, wait, and I was listening to him like, are you serious? Like,
What?
The point of the line is there is blood on your hands either way.
Yes.
Whether you kill the infant, the blood will be Penelope and Telemachus. If you don't kill the infant, Or if you do kill the infant, then the blood is the infant. The blood on your hands is already there. It's either Penelope and Telemachus's blood or the infant's blood. All you can choose is whose blood it is, right? But one way or another, you will have blood on your hands. That's the point of the line. It's very clear. like and I'm like, how did you not get this? Were you not paying any attention? Now the answer to this, of course, is no, she wasn't, right? Like what she was doing was artistically nitpicking every line, like hyper focusing on it. Now I want to just go through like the Troy saga then a little bit to see like she didn't get any better later. So you get into the second song, which is Full Speed Ahead. She goes in another rant about the line, but the problem's not the distance, it's what lies in between. Once again, great line, honestly, right? It really gives you, like, it sets up the scope of the adventure. You know, the problem's not the distance, it's what lies in between. And she's going on about how this line's really not clear because the distance actually just means the what lies in between. It's the space in between. That's the distance. And I'm like, what are you talking about? No. The distance is the length, like the space. You know, the problem is not how long it takes to get there, right? Or the amount of miles you need to travel. It's the things that are in your way on that path, right? Like, this is not unclear. I don't understand. What's the issue? Like, she also, there were just other things that are straight up not criticisms, right? Like when she's going, Eurylochus pops in. Now, Eurylochus, Jorge has always said every character has an instrument. Eurylochus's instrument is the crew. We're introduced to Eurylochus in this line when he says 600 men, 600 miles of open sea. I'm trying to remember the exact line. 600 men with big mouths to feed, and we've run out of supplies to eat. And then the crew in the background, who remember our Eurylochus's instrument, say, first, damn the war, our food stores depleted. Okay, so she says this is an irrelevant, like, why are they repeating what Eurylochus is saying? I'm like, what do you mean, why? That's the entire point. Because Eurylochus is the voice of the crew. They're signifying that they're backing him up. Eurylochus and the crew are in sync. That's the point, right? This actually becomes very relevant later in Mutiny, when the crew backs Eurylochus instead of Odysseus, right? Like, you need to establish this now, that the crew is on the same page as Eurylochus. And then there were just so many horrible things. Like, they get to Open Arms. Open Arms isn't even one of my favorite songs. I think it's fine, right? But, like, she goes, hey, why does this song have an island vibe? She's going, that's weird. What's with the island vibe? And I'm like, they just landed on an island. What do you mean? Why does it... like, what do you... And I'm like, I feel like I'm losing my mind. Like, what do you mean? Why does this song have an island vibe? Because it takes place on an island. That's like the entire premise of the previous song. They just landed on an island. They're walking on the island. Like, this is where the Lotus Eaters live. Oh, it's so bad. It's so bad. And then my personal favorite of all of them was that Warrior of the Mind, which is a much beloved song, by the way. One of the most beloved songs in Epic.
It was what got me to start listening to the rest of it.
Mm-hmm. Introduces Tegan Early's Athena. It starts off with her going, I want you to pay attention to these lyrics. Have you forgotten the lessons I taught you? And then Odysseus says, Athena, have you forgotten to turn off your heart? This is not you. So 2 times she says, have you forgotten? Right? And then she says, I see you changing from how I designed you. Have you forgotten your purpose? That's the 3rd time. Let me remind you. All right. Now, I don't know about you, but it sounds to me like Athena is very concerned that Odysseus has forgotten something.
No.
Right?
Yes.
That's the point of this whole opening section. And that the reason when she says, let me remind you, we go into a flashback. Why are we in a flashback? Because Athena needs to remind him of something that Odysseus has forgotten. What do you think Astor's commentary on this was?
I don't understand. Odysseus is supposed to be a smart guy. Why is he forgetting something?
Close. It was what it actually was her going, why do we need to be shown this? Why is Athena showing him something he should already know? So you're kind of right.
That was the most uncharitable thing I could have her talk about.
And you're absolutely correct. That is exactly what she says. Keep in mind that she uses the word forgotten 3 times.
Right, rule of
And
three.
then says, let me
Rule of
remind
three
you.
is the subtext.
Yes.
Right.
Before going into,
Rule
and this
of
is
three.
immediately after Open Arms. Right? So what is she reminding him of? Somebody mentioned, like, but I don't understand, like, there's still no reason. Somebody tried to defend this in a really lame way in, like, a comment. Where they go, like, there's still no reason that we need to see his entire backstory. It's like, yeah, we don't need to, but number one, like, this is a quick thought, meaning it takes a moment, right, to Odysseus. And number two, the entire song is 3 minutes long. Like, it doesn't take that long. Like, you act like you go, oh, we showed him his whole cat. No, you stopped for 3 minutes to say, remember why I picked you? You know, like,
Yes.
how is this even a legitimate criticism? What are you talking about? And that's where I'm like, okay, so she's not paying any attention to, like, what the actual lyric. She's just picking out moments, right, where she could say, oh, this is wrong, right? Oh, this is wrong. You know, uh, then you get to, like, it just gets worse. You get to the Cyclops saga, and she pauses and criticizes Survive because the song starts with, after the monster starts attacking them, Odysseus says, my comrades, the rest of our fleet, they're waiting. And then it's something, I don't remember the exact words, but it's like,
Yes.
if we don't fight, they're good as dead, straight ahead, that's who we're fighting, or something like that. Yeah, basically he gives them a little pep talk. She actually stops it and goes, why does he need to talk them into this fight? Aren't they already into it? It's a Cyclops. And my sister's reaction to this was like, this is such a bizarre comment. Like, generals don't make speeches to their men before big battles to try and psych them up and to remind, like, why? What are you criticizing here? This is just a normal thing that people do. Like, I don't understand. It was horrendous. It was so bad. Um, it's a perfectly reasonable line, and I skipped most of it, right? Like, but I looked later. Like, her critique of Thunder Saga was just as bad as the rest of it. You get to Thunder Saga, so you have the song "Suffering." The first thing she's doing, she's criticizing the song "Suffering" for. I mean, it wasn't suffering. It was different beast she had an issue with. She was criticizing the line, we won't take more suffering from you. And she was going, see, I really don't like this because suffering, like, it's a very awkward lyric. It doesn't make any sense in the context. And it's like, it's a callback to the previous song, the one that was just sung. Odysseus is throwing the words back into the sirens' faces that they were using to try and seduce him so they could murder him and his crew. Right? So Odysseus is making a point of using the word suffering when he responds to them. Like, it's not the greatest lyric in the world. It's far from the worst. It's a perfectly acceptable lyric. It makes perfect sense. What was that?
As they say, perfectly cromulent.
Right. It does its job perfectly well. We won't take more suffering from you. You know, somebody says, like, saying we won't take more lying from you. We're going to cause you to suffer. Well, now we're not going to take that anymore from you. And the reason I agree that suffering might be a slightly awkward thing to use there, except that the context changes this, because Odysseus is making a point of using that word specifically to throw it back in the sirens' faces. Because Odysseus is acting like the monster here. Remember? That was the whole thing. He's very dark now. This is edgy Odysseus.
Yes.
And then Yeah, even like people criticizing Thunderbringer. The fun part of criticizing Thunderbringer is that the criticisms of Thunderbringer were like the lyrics don't make sense, and then they looked it up, and then as it turns out, the lyrics actually did make sense. They were just using big words. So, and then it became that the lyrics were confusing, which once again completely misses the point of Thunderbringer. So I love Thunderbringer, right? And specifically, I love the lyrics of Thunderbringer. I would not change a syllable of it. I love it,
Right, right.
right? So there's a moment in the song where it's true that Zeus is using words and wording them in like complex ways that are not easy to grasp on a first listen, right? But why is Zeus doing that? Like, is that just random? Is Jorge just showing off? Well, no, Jorge's not showing off. Zeus is showing off,
Yep.
right? That's the whole point. He is using complex words and rhymes that aren't and metaphors that aren't immediately obvious because Zeus is showing off. He doesn't really care if the crew gets it. They're his captive audience at this point, right?
Yep.
They have to listen. That's why it starts off with him not even talking to the crew. He says, "Pride is a damsel in distress." This is a very elaborate metaphor that Zeus is about to give. It's also not a direct metaphor, right? The reason that Zeus is doing this is because the crew has to listen to him, and he's Zeus. He does what he wants, right?
Yep.
So he's going to make an elaborate metaphor. That's why you have the line later when he goes, "Sublime you for your act of crime." Now, sublime, people were saying that's not a verb, and then they looked it up. As it turns out, it is a verb. It means to turn directly from a solid to a gas, basically to vaporize someone, right?
Yep.
So he is saying, "I should sublime you for your act of crime," right? You've committed a crime, so I'm going to vaporize you. Like, that's what Zeus is saying. Now, why does Zeus say it in such a flowery and ornate way with such elaborate and unusual words? Well, the reason that he's doing that is because Zeus doesn't care if the crew gets it. He just wants them to listen to him speak while he has them captive in front of him.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and he wants to be able to show off. It's kind of implied that, especially in the Neil animatic, which I like, that Zeus doesn't have a lot of opportunities to do this, so now he's flexing. Uh,
Yep.
but the implication is not like, to be clear though. I don't think the implication's from the animatic. I think that she's teasing it out from the song, right?
Yes.
So yeah, like changing the lyrics of Thunderbringer would not work. It wouldn't make sense. The lyrics of Thunderbringer are actually brilliant. They're excellent. And if you want my overall opinion on the lyrics of Epic, I think they range from fine, maybe somewhat forced in the faster rhymes, to superb, right? Like, I don't really think it ever gets any worse than just fine. You know, like, there are times where I guess the rhymes are a little bit forced, but overall, there are also moments that I think Jorge really nails it, like "No Longer You," uh, and I think too, "Hold Them Down," "Thunderbringer." For some, I think "Hold Them Down" actually has really good lyrics. Now that I'm thinking it over specifically,
Oh yeah. Like I
yeah.
said, I love how it changes from like a call to action to like this seduction of the other suitors. It's
Well, when he gets to Penelope, it's great
yes.
because
Oh
that's when he
yes.
turns into, "And when the deed is done," and that's when he like kind of sinks his voice low to be
Mm.
like, "And then this is the real prize. The queen will have no one to," right? It's great.
Yes.
Uh, Excellent villain song. Antinous is immediately just a despicable character who you're very happy to see die, which is what a villain song properly needs to do. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, So that's probably the last we'll talk about Epic specifically in its own stream until the movie or inevitable live adaptation of it comes out. Uh, they might make a cut song saga, in which case we'll talk about it then. Uh, Overall thoughts on Epic, I loved it. That's really like in many ways my platonic ideal of a musical. It's what I would ideally have done if I were to design a musical based on the Odyssey, I would have designed something very close to Epic.
Mm. I mean, yeah, no, it works. We enjoyed ourselves very much with it here at the Superversive crew. We do recommend it to people, uh, just because it's it's honestly very hard to find good stuff to watch these days. So you want to support. Um, yes, you want to support the creators and such any way you can, in hopes that they'll continue to be able to make lightning strike.
Yeah,
As a creator ourselves, we know it's hard to catch lightning in a bottle. Even though I think a series like Mother Morrow has been, quite frankly, some of my best work. But at the same time, I don't think it hits that excellent point. The lightning I want. Um, the things I want maybe too strange, too different. But there's something I want that is that at what John C. Wright would call like a book of gold. What we're looking for. This thing of the Odyssey, there's probably not going to be one better. The Return certainly didn't hit it. Christopher Nolan's probably not going to do it. Um, People like pointing out the Dark Knight trilogy, but Dark Knight Rises was hot shit. uh there's a reason why Bane posting is a thing. It's not because it's the best thing in the world. Event I don't anyway. um so,
yeah. If there's one thing I would take out of like what's the lesson of Epic, it's that it's something we said early on, which is that Epic could only have ever been created by some guy, right?
mm,
And capital S, capital G, right? Like some guy. It couldn't have been created in the studio system. It couldn't have been created by somebody established who had connections. It couldn't
mm-hmm.
have been created even by a team. It had to have been created by some guy who said, you know what would be neat if I made my own adaptation of the Odyssey, and whose agenda was not to push some sort of social or political ideology, but just to say, this would be cool, an adaptation of the Odyssey, right?
Yes.
And that's exactly what he made. And for that, whatever else Jorge does, and however he may disappoint me in the future, uh, which I'm sure he will, um,
Yes, unfortunately.
Jorge deserves a lot of credit for this, and he deserves all of the accolades that he's gotten. Um, Critics like Aster Rhymer, this is the other takeaway from this, that the reason I went on that wrong rant, it's kind of important, right? We need to call out these people when we have the chance to.
Mm.
Uh, like, you can't let, if someone is saying that I should be trusted as a critic, then without getting specifically personal, we can't let people get away with bad criticism. We need to respond. And this was especially bad criticism. Um, it was like clearly she was not paying attention. She went in with an axe to grind, and it was very very bad. And this is specifically a problem because she presents herself as an expert on lyricism, but could not grasp why the song that was played on Island had an island vibe, or that when Athena said, "Let me remind you," that might be why she was reminding Odysseus of something. Uh, because he forgot something, as she mentioned 3 different times. So, it's like
Yep.
Mahler has the right idea about this, and Mahler as well should be called out if he says something that is egregiously wrong. Now, I don't always agree with everything Mahler says, but I will say that it's very rare that Mahler says something egregiously wrong, right? And the reason he doesn't, and the reason that Ben and I very rarely say something that's just straight up like nonsense, is because we believe in objective quality.
Yep.
Like, we believe that we can be wrong, and if we don't want to say something, if we think it is wrong, right?
Right.
It's not just, well, in my opinion. No, this is either good or not good, or potentially it's good and not to my taste,
Yep.
right? Certain
It's
things are that, and that's perfectly fair and not like not worth criticizing. We've had this discussion many times that there are things where we go, I don't have a critique of it, it's just not to my taste. I didn't like it. And
yep.
then you that is different though. I would never say such a thing was bad, right?
Yep.
Okay. Anything you want to add, Ben?
I'm still not a fan of Polyphemus voice. Still
I
not.
like it.
Yeah.
I thought it was cool. Can I tell you?
Alright. That's
All
well.
right.
That's. Listen. All right, Anthony. Don't make me do this. Don't make me depict you as a virgin and me as a Chad. Okay, Anthony. I beg you, change your opinion. Don't make
I
me
beg
do
you. I don't want to do this.
this. I'm I'm going to know your meme right now to download the images, Anthony. But yes, uh, there's what Anthony says is correct. If it's, I'm sure we've had our share of dog shit opinions, but it's our dog shit opinions, as the saying goes. There's an old internet meme. Oh yeah, I said something stupid. Well, what if it's my actual dog shit opinion, huh? What if it's my, and he actually uses the word dog shit.
Yeah, there's a point
It's
here
like,
where it's like if I do say something that's very wrong, then I should be called out for it
yes,
because it was dumb and I shouldn't have said it.
yes. And there's a time and place for these things, but at the same time, it's like with, that thing about H Bomber guy. He's just, it bothers me. Like this chick that Anthony watched. That sort of thing would bother me. I'm not here for some sort of subjective. Oh, don't you know plagiarism's wrong? Or well, I just don't like it. Okay. And quite frankly, he seems like a bad person because I don't like this song. Like that sort of thing needs to die. It's plebeian, it's slop, and it's not what we provide you here in Pinkerton's Ghosts. It's not what we provide you in Superversive, and it's not what we provide you in Hightower Magazine. Listen, I want you guys to have a great New Year's. We'll be back next year, probably with Nathan Hood, maybe, if he wants to come, if he can, to talk about politics. We do need a political stream every now and then, and the reason for that is pretty simple. Um, what are we? That's sort of a question that's been haunting me. Like I know I'm a Christian, of course. I know I'm this. I know I'm that. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, if I present myself and if I try to convince people, hey, you need to think like me, act like me. I need to give a stirring rhetorical speech for King Arthur nationalism. What does that mean? What does that look like? How can we define ourselves? Because quite frankly, I'm tired of this talk about, Christian nationalism this, Christian nationalism that, and this and that, and then like some dude comes up with a total, professional look, and you've never heard of him before. Well, that's a red flag. But then other people who you trust, treat him like he's one of them, and that he's always been there. So, what can we believe? What can we do about these things? How can we act? And I'd like to chat with him on it because he has some good ideas um, that I think might be good for us because there's some events like the Witten in England and a few others that are excellent and visited by all the right people. And I sort of want to know how these things go. And what can we do here in America and other places to build up? In the next year, we'll of course do more streams. We will have some offerings that you can buy on Amazon. I think you'll really enjoy. They just have a lot of editing to do, and I have to do it. And I've been scared to do it because it means I have to. It's beyond just the short story, right? It's all the short stories, if you get me. Um, as well as other things besides. We have a lot of projects we're working on, and just pray for me that this is the first New Year's in almost a decade, 5 years for sure, where I just don't get so sick that I'm unable to do anything for weeks and weeks and weeks, and it kills my momentum. Uh, pray for our health, pray for our work. Anthony has a lot of life changes he's going through. Ken, of course, you should always pray for Ken. These things that are coming up here are important, and I think we're pretty good soldiers for the Lord, and sometimes, I think if we're healthy,
Occasionally.
sometimes, uh, like 51%. All right, the average person's 50% a good soldier. We're 51. We're 50 and a half, Anthony. All right,
There you go.
We're 50.1. 0-1. I think we, we produce a lot more than the average person. Um, and I think that we can take that into the new year and really, really rock it for you guys. Because there's no point screaming into the void. The void doesn't exist. It's nothing. It's less than nothing. We're not here to make slop. We're not here to tickle you in ways that don't make you think, that don't have ideas and opinions that can really grow. And so I hope that you join us in our future projects, and that we really give you things that you find special, and that above all everything else, please the Lord. Um, which is the real judge of it all. We can only act in so many ways and so many times, um, that in the end, when we die, the Lord is going to take us to task for every word we say, everything we do. And while it doesn't count to our salvation, I'd rather be told, hey, you were a good and faithful servant, um, than not, you know. And I think everyone who's rightly ordered wants that. Uh, Thank you all. I'll pray for you and those I know and those I don't know. Um, and I hope that you'll join us for the next year, uh, where we'll have some really special things for it, Lord willing, and I do believe He does. Thank you, and have a good night. There we go.
Yay, and good night.